Attention! Ukraine has just reduced to ashes one of Russia's most important logistics depots in Taganrog, a surgical strike with drones, robots, and armored vehicles that left the heart of southern Russia's military supply chain in ruins. But the inevitable question is, was this a masterstroke by Kyiv that will change the course of the war? Or a move too risky, one that could escalate the conflict to unpredictable levels? Subscribe if you believe Ukraine did the right thing by striking Russia's rear with this unprecedented operation. Or comment if you think they crossed a dangerous line by detonating thousands of tons of ammunition so close to the border. Because what you're about to see isn't just another offensive, it's proof that modern war is no longer fought with numbers, but with technology, precision, and the ability to strike where it hurts the most. At 4:07 a.m., near the outskirts of Taganrog, the air was heavy, unnervingly silent. Suddenly, Russian supply convoys escorted by BTRS and Panzer S-1 systems flooded the depot, carrying more than 1.6 million kilos of fuel and ammunition, enough to supply 3 divisions for an assault on Zaporizhia. This wasn't routine logistics. It was a spearhead toward the south, designed to tip the entire front. And then, the silence broke. What followed wasn't just an attack. It was a masterclass in joint warfare. The Russian convoys hadn't even finished unloading when the sky betrayed them. Barely 12 minutes after the first truck entered the Taganrog depot, 6 Ukrainian Beaver reconnaissance drones pierced the airspace from high altitude, spreading across a 5-square-mile grid. Flying alongside them, 2 aging Tu-141s dove at low altitude, emitting a massive radar signature to simulate a large-scale bombing run. Russian radar stations lit up. Believing a massive air raid was inbound, operators activated the Panzer S-1 systems and launched multiple 57 E-6 missiles, each costing $60,000, into the dawn's emptiness. That was the signal. Just above the treetops, a swarm of FPV kamikaze drones, each no larger than a toolbox, rushed through the radar's blind spot at under 45 meters altitude, guided by terrain tracking AI. Within seconds, they slammed into fuel trucks at the rear of the Russian column. First fireball lit the depot like a false sunrise. 2 more drones followed, striking ammunition trucks and unleashing secondary explosions that ripped through the staging area. Before the smoke could clear, tracked reconnaissance robots emerged from hidden trenches near the forest. Their thermal cameras scanned for heat signatures and relayed coordinates of active machine gun nests and radar trucks deeper inside the compound. The decoy attack had worked. Russia was firing at shadows while the real blades slipped inside. The flames from the first strikes still rose when the next wave arrived, this time from the ground, not the sky. With Russian air defenses saturated and distracted, Ukraine deployed its second blade of the ambush. Autonomous ground robots the size of backpacks, nicknamed Iron Beetles, were released from low-altitude tactical drones about 90 meters above ground. These bots landed softly with micro-parachutes and rolled forward on 6 wheels toward the Russian tank lot east of the depot. Their mission was simple: find, crawl, and kill. One by one, the Beetles slid beneath parked T-90 tanks, attaching themselves to the chassis with magnetized arms. Each carried a directional-shaped charge set to detonate once the engine was turned on. The trap was ready, waiting for any Russian crew to twist a key. Meanwhile, from the southwest, Ukrainian 6-man teams on motorcycles crossed a dry irrigation canal, their engines muffled by improvised suppressors. Using suppressed carbines and short-barreled submachine guns, they silently neutralized 3 Russian guard posts on the perimeter. One team even infiltrated the fuel trailer area, placing thermal charges beneath drums stacked 2 stories high. This wasn't brutal raiding. It was surgical sabotage executed with ruthless precision. By the time Russians reacted to the initial blasts, their inner perimeter was already compromised. Machine gun nests were silent, fuel yards had been mined, and in the tank lot, no one had yet noticed the tiny metallic insects resting under $5 million worth of steel. In Kyiv, command watched live drone feeds in silence. Every move had gone according to plan, but they knew the deeper you cut the beast, the harder it thrashes. The real battle hadn't even begun. The Beetles had done their work. Russian guards were down, fuel yards primed, and tanks immobilized, some already doomed to explode once ignited. Now the operation shifted phases. It was time to break the perimeter. From the tree line near the southern coast, a column of Ukrainian T-84 Oplot tanks began advancing. Behind them, YPR-765 armored transports adapted for urban combat moved in staggered formation. The distance from forest to Russian trenches was barely 2 kilometers, but every meter would be contested. Above, observation drones at 600 meters relayed thermal data in real time to a Ukrainian artillery battery 13 kilometers west. Within seconds, self-propelled howitzers opened fire. This wasn't random shelling, it was choreography. Each round hit with surgical precision. Mortars, anti-tank missile nests, and Russian radars identified earlier by robots and drones. Russian defenders barely had time to respond before their coordinates lit up red across every Ukrainian screen. Then came the tanks. The first Oplot crested a hill and fired its 125mm cannon at a machine gun bunker. The shot tore it apart, blasting concrete and steel into the air. Ukrainian armor pressed forward, just 20 meters behind the artillery's curtain fire, betting everything on confusion and momentum. Russian infantry tried to regroup, launching RPGs from behind BMPs and containers, but the YPRs answered with 30mm autocannons, clearing trenches before Ukrainian soldiers even dismounted. In the center of the advance, an Oplot was struck by a Kornet missile, but its reactive armor absorbed most of the impact. It kept moving, less than 300 meters from the depot's southern gate. Inside the YPRS, Ukrainian troops readied demolition charges to breach the final fence. Overhead, loitering munitions waited to dive onto any Russian vehicle attempting escape. In under 12 minutes, Ukraine achieved what many thought impossible: armored units within striking distance of Taganrog's main logistics hub, right under the nose of Russia's southern command. And still, Kiev hadn't played its final card. With Ukrainian armor less than 300 meters from the southern entrance, Russian command at the depot finally realized this wasn't a simple raid. It was a full-scale, multi-domain assault, and they hadn't yet seen what was coming from above. At 6,700 meters, a pair of MiG-29s sliced across the sky, east to west over the complex. Their mission wasn't to strike, but to provoke. They broadcast radar signatures and encrypted attack links, mimicking cruise missile launches. Within seconds, Russian radar crews locked targets, convinced high-altitude missiles were inbound. As expected, electronic warfare units in Borysoglebsk activated wide-spectrum jamming, flooding the 5.8 GHz band to blind drones or missiles. The trap was set, but not for the fighters. Flying just 40 meters above the ground, a Reboth kamikaze drone used the radar chaos as cover. Armed with a 5-kilogram shaped charge warhead, it skimmed the terrain like a hawk in a canyon. Its mission: punch a hole in the depot's reinforced north wall. But as it crossed the fence, Russian jammers detected it. Video feed cut, GPS faltered, guidance nearly collapsed. Then the pilot in Kyiv flipped the switch. The drone severed its wireless link and switched to fiber optic control. Through a cable connected to a hidden relay in an abandoned farm 2.5 kilometers away, radio waves could be blocked, but light in glass was unstoppable. Despite crosswinds and thermal sensors sweeping the sky, the Reboth held course. Its AI made hundreds of micro-corrections per second, keeping it low, fast, and lethal. At the depot, Russians still tracked the MiGs. No one noticed the silent shadow hugging treetops until it was too late. The Reboth was less than 200 meters from its target when everything almost collapsed. A Russian FPV drone on routine patrol caught its thermal signature, closing in within seconds. If it confirmed visually, the whole operation would unravel. In Kyiv, the pilot's screen lit red. No time to think. He accelerated. The drone banked hard between two ruined warehouses barely 6 meters apart. Its props scraped rusted metal, but the signal held. At the same moment, Ukrainian special forces activated the backup plan. A laser designator lit a decoy drone, drawing the Russian FPV away. The real one stayed low, steady, and deadly. Just then, a Russian command truck pulled into the north gate. officers inside unaware of the hunter above them. The Reboth descended, locked on, and dove straight into the vehicle. The shaped charge pierced steel like butter. But that was just the trigger. Behind the wall lay hundreds of tons of munitions. The chain reaction ignited instantly. The first blast was so violent it shook the entire complex, the shockwave rattling even the farthest structures. Within seconds, secondary explosions from inner depots followed. The place didn't just explode, it disintegrated, erupting into a storm of fire and metal shards hurled in every direction. The blast wave tore off roofs, flipped vehicles, and raised a choking cloud of dust mixed with burning fuel. Amid the chaos, the drone that had started it all vanished, its mission flawlessly sealed. Then came the inevitable. Grad rockets stored across the complex, stacked by the dozen in containers and makeshift hangars, ignited uncontrollably. Some launched skyward from the heat, streaking like fiery fireworks laced with destruction. Others veered wildly, crashing into Russian barracks just 300 meters away. The result was catastrophic. Tents flattened, vehicles turned to burning scrap, communication systems obliterated beyond repair. The fire spread fast, consuming everything in its path. Flames found fuel and ammo caches, each blast feeding the inferno. Within minutes, the entire complex blazed like a colossal bonfire lighting up the dawn. To ensure no infrastructure could be salvaged, Ukraine launched a second kamikaze drone, striking the last communications tower still standing on the eastern perimeter. The direct hit unleashed yet another chain of explosions rippling outward, lighting the horizon in successive bursts. What had begun as a pinpoint operation had turned into a scene of total annihilation. Russia's logistical heart in the region reduced to ashes and twisted steel. Within minutes, the massive Taganrog logistics hub, a vital supply artery for southern Russia's military, was utterly obliterated. What had once been fuel depots, massive radar arrays, fortified command centers, and steel-reinforced bunkers became a wasteland of absolute destruction. The blasts were so intense, they not only erased surface structures, but also collapsed underground fortifications designed to withstand conventional strikes. The outcome was devastating. A crater nearly 1 kilometer wide now scarred the land, surrounded by twisted metal and glowing fragments still burning beneath layers of smoke. A thick black column climbed into the sky at dawn, visible for miles, a testament that where Russia's logistical core once stood, nothing remained operational. The silence on Russian comms confirmed the unthinkable. Their supply and coordination network in this sector had been dismantled in a single blow. Meanwhile, in Kyiv, the command room stayed utterly silent. Officers watched satellite and drone feeds, every frame showing the scale of destruction. Then, one commander finally spoke, his restrained voice capturing the moment's weight. "We just turned their fortress into a funeral." The strike severed supply routes to Crimea, forcing Moscow to pull troops from the Avdiivka axis for at least 3 weeks. It wasn't just a tactical victory, it was a strategic rupture. And yet, amid the flames, Ukrainian soldiers rescued 2 wounded Russians, stabilizing them until medics arrived. The message was clear: this war is about precision, not cruelty. As smoke still rose, a reconnaissance robot returned to ground zero, transmitting one last signal: mission accomplished. What remained in Taganrog wasn't just a destroyed depot, it was a kilometer-wide crater, an open wound in Russia's logistics, and, above all, a warning. In this war, whoever masters technology and intelligence rewrites the rules of the battlefield. But the question now is, has Ukraine just proven it can strike Russia's logistical heart without Moscow being able to stop it? Or is this attack the spark that could ignite a brutal response and push the war past the point of no return? The line between strategic genius and dangerous provocation has never been thinner. Subscribe if you believe Kyiv just took a firm step toward victory. Comment if you think it was a reckless move that could unleash something far worse. Because what we saw in Taganrog wasn't the end of a battle, it was the beginning of a much more uncertain war.